Let's talk a little bit about workplace culture. It's one of those things when it's in an organization, you can tell right away things are going well. But occasionally you walk into a place and right away you know, ooh, this is not a happy workplace. Maybe it's the fact that everything's really messy, or you can tell that colleagues don't like each other. There's like a tension in the air. We're going to talk about some ways that you can try to improve workplace culture. Workplace culture is one of those things that can change over time. So you really have to make a commitment to it, much like a relationship. My name is Ken Okel. I'm a professional speaker. I talk to people and organizations about ways you can improve your performance on the job. And I do that by pulling from my professional experiences from broadcast news, hurricane relief, and professional ballet. Now, I know, unusual combination, but in each and every field, I had to perform at a high level every day under pressure. Take a moment to think about a rock band, because often that is a good example of team culture. There are different members in the band. They do different things, but when they all work together, they make sweet music. It is really something that's impressive for everyone to see and feel. Do people feel like they fit in the band? Even if they're in the back, just kind of playing a tambourine, do they feel like they fit? Do they feel like their efforts are contributing to a whole? Or does it seem like they're just standing in the back, maybe with the triangle, just kind of going ding, 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 and they don't really know why they're there. They're just been told to do that. You want people to feel that level of engagement, that no matter their position, no matter their salary, that they are there and that they matter. Sometimes when I go into an organization to give a presentation, I'll see how people are seated. Because often if there are a lot of open seats at the front and everyone's in the back, that tells me there may be a bit of an engagement problem where people are more like, oh, I'll just sit back here. I'm not really that committed, versus someone who's like, hey, I am interested in this. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm right here. Now, I understand sometimes you got to sit in the back. Maybe you got to check your messages or something like that. But it is something when you can kind of see people saying, I'm going to sit in here, but I don't necessarily want to be engaged, but I have to be here, so I'll sit. Not the best sign for improving team culture. I often tell people that in today's world, you have to imagine that you are being watched. We encounter a lot of cameras in our world every day, and you hope that you don't do anything silly that might end up on something like YouTube. But you have to keep in mind, hey, I'm being watched all the time. I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I would not feel embarrassed if it was seen by the rest of the world. When I worked in TV news, if you were in the studio or in the field and you had a microphone on and you had a camera pointed at you, you always had to assume that someone might hit a button and that might go out live. So if you were mic'd up, camera pointed toward you, you don't complain about your coworkers, make fun of someone, say your story is silly. It might have been, but you did not do that if there was any chance of that message going out to the masses, because it would be extremely embarrassing and unprofessional. So think about that in your regular work. Are you making sure, if you're talking about negative stuff, that there aren't any customers around who could overhear you, who might read your body language? Really make sure that your actions are supporting the organization. Sometimes it's as simple as a little piece of trash on the floor. Is your organization one where if someone sees a piece of trash on the floor, they'll pick it up, throw it out? Or are they going to walk by? That can tell you a lot about the culture in your organization. If people are just like, hey, I didn't make the mess, I'm not cleaning it up, versus people saying, you know, a mess for one is a mess for all, I'm going to take care of it. There's a spectrum of this, obviously. Think about where you are. You want to also consider the questions that people may be asking themselves, especially when there's some sort of challenging situation, a new initiative, a project that is needed, but maybe no one wants to do it. What are the questions they're going through people's minds? Because are they thinking, how can I help? I'm here. Let me assist you. Or are they kind of like, okay, where can I hide so I can get out of doing this extra work? Now, that's both sides of the coin. Consider, where are people and why are they making those decisions? Are they feeling so disengaged that they just don't want to help out? Do they feel like they've been taken advantage of in the past? Try to see if you can drill down and find out what is behind those questions that people are asking themselves, because it could really help you build your team culture. Have you ever heard a big fish story? It's one of those stories where someone has gone fishing and they got a really big fish. It was a great day of fishing. Now, wonderful to hear. I like big fish stories. But sometimes has someone been telling the same big fish story for 10, 20 years, and they go fishing, but they've never quite caught a fish like that ever again? Organizations can do that sometimes. They have a plaque up saying they're the company of the year, but it's from 12 years ago. Now, it's good that you were once able to accomplish that. But if you have some old award up on the wall, people might wonder, well, what have you done lately? Are you still that good company, or are you just relying on yesterday's news as a validation of today's value? Important thing to consider, because sometimes people focus too much on big fish stories and not enough on goals and changes that need to be made, that the marketplace is demanding of them. You've gotten a little comfortable telling that old story again and again, and you're not as innovative as you used to be, and maybe people are picking up on that. Can you turn your focus more towards what you could do versus what you have done? Finally, I want to acknowledge the fact that we have all been working through screens with one another for quite some time. It was part of the pandemic. We had to work from home. We have to interact with one another through a screen. Now, as more people are going back together, you're going back into the office, you have to kind of change the way you interact. Because when you're on, let's say, a Zoom call, maybe you don't raise as many concerns because it's harder to talk to people when you're doing it through a system where it cuts you off or two people talk at once, versus if you're in the same room. Are you still acting like you're talking to someone through a screen and you're not saying as much? Make sure people get that interaction when they are together in a meeting. They may have grown used to kind of sitting back, waiting their turn, where really you want them to be more actively engaged and to raise their hand and talk about something if they see an issue, and not just wait till their turn in a Zoom call. It's a slight shift in how people can interact with one another. You want to make sure, though, when they're back together, and it's not just like you're having a Zoom call with everyone in the same room. I hope these tips have proven useful, and your organization will be able to grow a stronger workplace culture. It is something, as I mentioned, that you have to focus on. Perhaps these tips will help you. For more about me, again, my name is Ken Okel. You can go to my website to find out more about me, see some clips of me in action, read some of my articles, listen to my podcast, kenokel.com. That's the place to go. You want to shoot me an email, do so at tvguy@kenokel.com. Now, what's the deal with that? Well, years ago when I worked in TV news, you'd often be out in the field and people would recognize you and they would want to say hello, but they wouldn't remember your name. So they would just yell out random things like, "Hey, TV guy." And of course, I welcome you to connect with me on the social channels as well. If you send me a connection request on LinkedIn, please mention where we encountered one another, like in this session. That way I am able to separate you from the less desirable people who seem to just want to sell me some stuff. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'm Ken Okel. Take care.